Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I have another Boneyard gun here that I've been working on. It's an AEP this time, which I've never worked on before. This is new for me, but it's for the MAC 10. Now I think this gearbox is shared across a couple of models, or maybe three. I think maybe the MP7 and the Scorpion, or maybe just the Scorpion. I'm not quite sure exactly. But I had it for cheap. I had it for £20 with a magazine, which is fantastic. And I didn't have a battery for it, but it was sold to me as not working. And when I did an inspection of the inside, I could quickly see why. There's a problem with the tappet plate, which is this piece here. The tip of it is broken off. So this little notch that you can see, I'm going to get my little pointer here. That little notch is what pushes the loading nozzle forwards, but there's supposed to be another notch at the front which will pull it back again, and that's missing from this. Now I've decided I'm going to try to fix it, and I've been at it with the with the tin can again, but I've bent myself a little piece of metal that kind of fits behind it. Let's get that to focus again. There, let's try that. There we go. I bent myself a little piece of tin can. And you can see how that slots in front of it to create the notch up at the front. I don't know how well this is going to work. It feels pretty rigid. And the design of the gearbox, which I'll move into focus here, it braces itself against this surface here. So it's not going to be just floating out there on its own. It'll actually be supported at the back. But that does mean that the tolerances are a bit tight. And the reason I've taken this out to do this, it is possible to slip this piece of metal in without disassembling the gearbox. But the tolerances are so tight that it actually popped the little cap of the loading, not the loading nozzle, but it's a part of the cylinder head. I don't really know what to call it, but it's got an O-ring in it, and the nozzle will slide back and forth in that. It actually popped that little cap off. So I'm going to need to take a little material off of this tappet plate to make room for the extra material I'm going to put in there, the tin can. Now I've decided I could have made allowances in other places. Now, when this tappet plate is pushed further across by the extra thickness of material that I've added in, it means that the loading nozzle is also getting pushed across. Now I thought about deepening the notch. Let me focus it again so you can see. That little notch there. I thought about deepening that notch to make room for it and making other allowances across the gearbox and the other internals. Ultimately I decided against that because I don't know if this mod is actually going to work or how long it's going to last and what have you. So I decided I'm just going to modify the tappet plate itself, which is already broken. And then if it doesn't work out, well, I haven't modified any other part of the gun, and I'll only need to replace the tappet plate if I do want to fix it properly. That's where we're at. So I'll be doing that at some point. But right now I want to show you the inside of this gearbox. So you can see it needed a clean out. It needed to be looked at. It's absolutely filthy and stinking in there. And there's not a great seal on the cylinder and piston either. Now, it looks like it'll seal better once I clean it out. So I'm going to be starting off with that. I'll probably just get on with the work that I want to do. That's quite strong looking actually. Look at that. That's an entire metal piece there. Yeah, I'll probably get on with just cleaning it out and then sort of run through it quickly on camera. You can just see what I'm doing and we'll go from there. Let's move these things out of the way. That's a little better. Let's go get some grease for that. Oh, got it right here. It's just silicone gun grease like this. Sometimes I do a little mix, a little bit of silicone gun grease and a little bit of the same brand of the oil to get a custom sort of, to customize the viscosity to my needs then. But I'm just going to get a bit worked in behind that O-ring but there. Okay. Okay, well I'll just carry on like that. I'll do the same thing and clean and re-grease all of the gears. I'm going to replace them back where they're meant to be and take note of all of the shims. Now, I don't see any shims on the underside of these three gears, the sector gear or the two spur gears. There's only one shim on top of this middle spur gear here. I might look at the engagement of this center, this spur gear in the center here, because it overlaps the two either side of it. And I want to make sure this got good clearance and they're not sort of binding on each other. And then apart from that, I'm going to take a file, and this is pretty much the main reason why this gearbox is even apart, because I did test it. It does run. It runs just fine. But the main reason I took it apart was to file this piece down, this tappet plate, to make allowance for the thickness of this piece of metal. And then I'll have to do some tuning and fitting. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, I've done a little bit of filing on this piece. There, you can see I've sanded the back of this tappet plate ever so slightly. Now this thing is very thin, so I have to be very careful with how much material I remove, but it didn't take much. Nowhere near as much as I was expecting, so I don't think that it'll weaken it too much. Now I'm going to reinstall it in the gearbox with the two halves of the shell together and the cylinder in there. See if yeah, brilliant, autofocused, excellent. And then I'm just going to move it back and forth on camera for you so you can see that now, well, hopefully it should have plenty of clearance. Let's have a look at that. That should do it. Right, so now I'm going to move it back and forth in there. That's all the way back. That's all the way forward. So you can see that it is moving freely now rather than being stuck before. That was a little tight and it was getting jammed right between the two places there. There's even, you can't see it perhaps in the video, but it's like scallop there. The tappet plate has sort of got a cut out of it to allow for the shape of this nozzle, and it was jamming up right there. And when it tried to go forward again, when I did manage to hook up a battery crudely to this gearbox just to see if it worked. And when I had this piece installed before filing it to make for room, it did just went back, and then when it came forward, this thing popped off and went flying across the room. So hopefully now that should have created the allowance there to allow it to move. What I haven't checked yet, and I can do now actually, is to see if the nozzle, when fitted in here and then rotated into place, is it pushed off at an angle or is it quite straight? It might be a little bit off at an angle, ever so slightly perhaps, but I think I'm going to get away with that. It looks pretty parallel, doesn't it? Alright, well I'll carry on with the reassembly. I'm just going to be putting everything back in the reverse order. I won't film it because I don't want to make a mistake. In regards to this cut-off lever in here at the bottom, I didn't find a spring in there at all, and I'm wondering if it doesn't need one because it interacts with spring-loaded components in the actual body of the MAC 10. Because unlike a regular version 2 or version 3 or other version gearboxes, where the fire control mechanism inside, it's contained within the gearbox, but in this one it seems that the fire control mechanism is external, and this interacts with it to kind of move the external parts and then control the semi-automatic. If I can't get semi-automatic working, that's not really a big deal for me because it's a MAC 10. You know, you're going to be shooting full auto, aren't you? So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll reassemble it and we'll give it a little test fire. Okay, the gun's back together now. I did have to clean out the fire control mechanism because the contact was getting stuck in the forward position, meaning that you pull the trigger to fire, you've released the trigger, and then it carries on firing in fully automatic. So that needed addressing. I just partially stripped it down, sprayed a bit of silicone oil in there, and then give it a scrub with a toothbrush. Everything started moving freely again, the contact wasn't getting stuck, so now that's all working properly. The semi-automatic is also working properly too. And then I was able to test it. So I did give it a test, and the BBs are barely coming out of the barrel. And I thought back to that funny cylinder seal. It wasn't very good. So I stripped the gun down again and put some Teflon tape around the cylinder head and just behind the piston head. And now the seal is perfect. So I reassembled it again, and it was still firing really low velocity. It was about 50 feet per second, which is no good at all. So I thought the only other place there could be a problem is with the loading nozzle. And what I didn't realize during testing is that this gun was consistently double feeding. And I blame the shape of the nozzle for that. Now, the original Tokyo Marui does have that same shaped nozzle, but it seems to cause issues in this clone. And when I looked online for replacement gearboxes and nozzles, they all seem to have a straight cut nozzle. So I decided I was going to reprofile the tip of the nozzle by making a new brass tip, attaching it to the nozzle, and then reprofiling it so it was straight. Now, to begin with, it was too long, so I had to progressively file it down until it was just short enough to load a BB, but long enough to make a good seal. That seemed to solve the double feed issue, and now the gun is firing consistently. I was getting 236 feet per second with a .20 gram BB, and the gun was firing at about 768 rounds per minute with a 7.4 LiPo. Now, that's much better. When I was testing this gun before, feeding the BBs manually one at a time, that's the velocity I got, so I don't think there's any drop or there's no problems with my loading nozzle modification or with the modification to the tappet plate. What I'd like to do is test that tappet plate modification for a long time and then get back to you in a later video to let you know how many rounds I've fired with this new, well, not the new tappet plate, but the piece of metal in the tappet plate, so you can get an idea as to how long something like that might last. But I'm pretty happy with it now. I want to leave you with the firing test so you can see what the gun can do, what it fires like. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the firing test. And I'll see you all in the next time.